Angel of light, come into me. Show me what I need to see.
Welcome to the Small Victories Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline Victoria, an inspirational thought leader that offers transformational perspectives based on my unique experiences as a woman born without arms and legs. I feel like my life has been full of small victories that has led me to discover the greatness within. I believe that there is no summit upon which we reach our greatness. I believe it is a culmination of small victories achieved moment by moment when we turn toward the inward battle where we get to choose despair or hope, misery or miracles, defeat or victory. My goal is to awaken your potential, your purpose, and your power so that you can discover the greatness that lives within you. Think of this podcast as your weekly portion of tools, stories, and teachings that help you reflect on the small victories in your life. Thanks for tuning in, and let's begin. Welcome to another episode of the Small Victories Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline Victoria. What if a hospital visit didn't have to be scary for a child? For many kids, medicine feels confusing, overwhelming, and filled with fear. But what if curiosity could replace anxiety? What if children actually understood their bodies, felt empowered to ask questions, and saw doctors and surgeons as helpers instead of something to fear? In today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Benjamin Nelson, a general surgeon and author of the children's book, Junior Surgeons Club, Letters from Your Body. What started as a heartfelt way to help his own children understand why dad had to leave in the middle of bedtime stories to save lives became a creative mission to help children everywhere better understand their bodies, health, and medicine. This conversation is powerful, educational, deeply human, and filled with reminders that knowledge creates confidence, curiosity creates courage, and understanding can transform fear into empowerment. Dr. Ben, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me today.
You know, I didn't even ask you, do you like to be called Dr. Ben? Do you like to be called Dr. Benjamin, Dr. Nelson? What's your preferred?
Well, at the hospital where I work, there's actually another Dr. Nelson. So I usually go by Dr. Ben, honestly.
Okay, perfect.
He was there first.
Okay. He won the Nelson duo out in there.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that I have this Dr. Benjamin Nelson, Dr. Ben for short, on this podcast. And I'm really excited to bring what you're doing to help other people. Most people, when they think doctors, you know, what comes in my head oftentimes is like Grey's Anatomy or The Pit or like, you know, it just feels so, it has this like heavy feeling and it feels so tense and like that doesn't feel good. You don't walk away going, wow, I feel so much better about hospitals. So I'm really glad that you're on here and you're doing the work to give people a different perspective on doctors and hospitals and the medical industry and what they could do to help participate in their medical journey, especially as children. And I know this is close to my heart as well, because as a child myself, when I was a child, I had to go through quite a few surgeries, and doctors were a very scary thing. So I'd like to first start out with your story about what motivated you to take the knowledge that you have as a doctor and put it into a children's book of all things.
Well, thanks. I think, you mentioned all those shows. I think I would love to demystify the surgeons and make them not intimidating for you. And I think Scrubs is probably the most realistic doctor show. For me, so I have a 3-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter, and I work in the community as a general surgeon. And so I'm on call a lot, about a third of each month. And so I'd be called in at night to see patients in the emergency room or in the hospital at bedtime or dinner time. And that just turned into tears for the kids, as you can imagine, anytime the pager went off. And so I tried ways to educate the kids. I thought, if I could teach them about what I'm doing, maybe they would understand why I have to go in and it would be less scary for them, or it would cause them less stress because they would know that I'm going to help someone else. And that's important. And so I had my old textbook for medical school, and we do what I call learning lessons with my daughter, who was, 4 or 5 at the time. And we'd go through the anatomy, but it was a bit a bit sterile and a bit technical. And so I think she got something out of it, but it wasn't really fun. And then we'd get books in the library, but a lot of those books were, again, either very technical or more focused on, the kids' books are more focused on how kids feel going to the hospital, what to expect, that kind of thing, which is great. But I really wanted to teach my kids about their own bodies and the organs that make up their bodies. So I thought, when kids are learning about animals or plants or creatures, oftentimes these are anthropomorphized into stories of the creatures. And I thought, what if we could anthropomorphize the organs? Wouldn't that be a fun way to learn about your body? And so I started writing letters from different organs to the kids to teach them where they are and what they do and how surgeons interact with them. And that's sort of how it took off.
Very cool. Could you hold the book up for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that is so cool. And so if you open the table of contents and if you're watching or listening to this might be like story time for you. What's one of the chapters called?
So at the beginning, I have the cast of characters and I have them divided up by system. So there's the digestive system that starts with your esophagus and goes down to the stomach and the small intestine, the large intestine, and the appendix. And then we have the urinary system and the lungs and the cardiovascular system, the biliary system. We have the immune system, glands, cells, and your integument or your skin. And so I have them organized by their different systems and the functions and try to put them together. And we talk about teamwork and how the organs work together, and how they help each other out.
Very cool. And the tagline of the book is letters from your body parts or organs? Letters from your body. So are each chapter a letter from like the kidney?
Correct. Yeah. So I named all of the parts of your body. So here's an example. Here's Artery, named Art. So Art writes you a letter explaining what he's doing, why he's important, how surgeons get involved with him. And then there's a little picture of Art writing a letter down the bottom there and a little picture of a junior surgeon there.
So cool. So what is that, one page, one chapter?
Like one page, yeah. Yeah, the book's organized with a picture on one side in the form of a stamp, and then on the other side is the handwritten letter from the organ.
Okay, so I have interviewed authors before, and they'd want to read like a little blurb from their book to give it a taste of what the book is about, or a poem from the book. I'd love. Could we hear the letter from Art?
Oh, absolutely. Let's see. Oh.
Or if there's another one that you feel like is more fun, or
well, let's do Appy the Appendix.
Okay,
that's a common one. A lot of kids get appendicitis, and adults.
Yeah.
So here's the picture. This is Appy.
Nice.
And it says, "Hi, junior surgeon. I'm your friend Appy. That's short for appendix. I'm an organ in your belly. I'm writing to you from my home on the right side of your lower belly. I'm the size of your little finger, and I hang off a part of your colon called the cecum. Shh. No one quite knows what I do. I'm very mysterious. But I think I provide a safe space for good bacteria to grow. Sometimes I get angry and make kid and adult tummies hurt. And when that happens, it's called appendicitis. That's where surgeons come in. When I make your tummy hurt, surgeons will remove me so you feel better. That procedure is called an appendectomy. Most people do just fine without having me around. They don't notice at all. Did you know that almost 300,000 appendixes are removed every year in the US alone? That's about 800 every day. And I like throwing in that thing at the end about 800 people go through this every single day, because I think it can be very isolating to be in the hospital, to be in the emergency room. A lot of the people that we see as general surgeons are having maybe the worst day of their lives when we meet them. And to help them feel less alone and less isolated, and they're part of this group that's also going through this, I think is really important.
Yeah. And it kind of puts you, I mean, as an adult, I'm hearing this as an adult, and I hear that and I'm like, oh, 800. So it's pretty normal and pretty standard operating procedure, right? Like it's very few complications happen because you're having to have surgery. And I actually had a friend, she was having a tummy ache. She went into the ER. It was appendicitis. They removed it, and she was out that afternoon and traveling on a plane the next day. It's crazy.
An appendectomy is one of the most satisfying operations that we do. People used to stay a night in the hospital after, but during COVID, we were really into getting people out of the hospital fast and recovering at home. And so we started sending a lot more people home that same day after their appendectomy. And honestly, a lot of them feel better after having their appendix out than they did going in. I mean, I was on call last weekend and I took out an appendix each day. So
Oh my God.
it's a very common operation. We do it all the time.
Wow. And I did not know it was the size of your pinky.
Yeah.
Who knew? I thought it was like this large organ.
No, it's adorable. It's adorable when it's not angry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very, very cool. I mentioned in the beginning, there is that feeling of like trepidation or the hospital's scary, surgeons are scary, they're going to cut you open. Where do you think that comes from?
Where does that mindset come from? I don't know. And I think it's changing. I think medical training nowadays focuses on shared decision making with the patients and their families, which it didn't 20, 30, 40 years ago. In the same way that medical training in general is changing in the way that it was just incredibly grueling 20, 30, 40 years ago. And now there's work hour restrictions, and we try to work towards more of a work-life balance and make it much more reasonable to train in the specialty that you're going into. Now, surgery is still very difficult, but it's much better than it was. And so I think both of those things, allowing the surgeons to focus on work-life balance and giving them more time off and more time to be themselves, has maybe made them friendlier. Who knows? But I think really the emphasis on shared decision making in our training has probably helped a lot with bedside manner and interacting with patients and talking to them and their families. And with technology nowadays, we can go through a CAT scan with a patient right at the bedside and help them understand what's going on inside their body, and so they can make an educated decision about what's going on.
As a doctor, I'm curious, do you appreciate patients who are more inquisitive? And it might come across like they're questioning your expertise, but they're also at the effect of the decisions the doctors make. And so I'm a big proponent of being informed about my body and potential issues. And then if a doctor says, oh, it's probably this, I could come back with a question. But do doctors like that? Or do they like, oh my God?
I think they should. I think patients should feel empowered to ask questions and understand what's going on with their body. There's very few things in medicine that are black and white. There's very few things in medicine that have a right answer. We see patients with appendicitis, for example, and we say, you need an appendectomy. But that's not really true anymore. It's so gray. There was a big study that came out years ago looking at folks that had appendicitis, and it said, can we treat appendicitis without surgery? Can we give them just antibiotics? And the answer was yes. And there's a percentage of those folks that are going to come back and have appendicitis again within a year. It's like 30% or so, but some won't. And so you have to take their social situations into account as well. Someone that is the sole source of income for their family and they have to get back to work by Monday, maybe that's someone that you can give antibiotics to and they're going to feel better and get back to work sooner. And we can work on scheduling the appendectomy down the line. And so telling patients what they need is never good medicine. The patient has to have some buy-in and be involved. And that's why I think it's really important that they advocate for themselves also, because we're not perfect and we miss things, and patients know their bodies much better than we do. And so by educating patients about their bodies and starting with kids and teaching them about the parts of their bodies and how they work, that provides them with some context to understand. Because if you go and Google a stomach ache, you're going to get 1,000 things. And some of them are going to be really scary. And if you don't have a context in which to put this information, it can be incredibly overwhelming. And so I think an educated, empowered patient is great. And I would love to chat with them anytime. And I want them to feel like they're making the decision, not me, because doctor in Latin is teacher. And so our job really is to teach the patient about what's going on with them, what's happening inside their body, and providing them with options for treatment. And if they choose surgery, then that's great. And I'm happy to help out any way I can. And if they choose not to have surgery, I'm still here to help them get through the situation the best way I can.
Wow. I feel like we all want a Dr. Benjamin Nelson at our back. Can we just clone you? And because and I feel like I've been very lucky in terms of anytime I've had to be in the hospital and having doctors that seem like they care and want to get to know me. But then I've seen doctors also who are very just short and to the point. They come in, read your chart, and then they don't say anything to you, and then they leave, and you're like, what? should you tell me something? And it is very
Yes.
cool. I did not know that doctor in Latin meant teacher. So that is, I feel like maybe they need to be reminded of that in terms of what really their role is. But if we know as patients that that's their role also, then we can feel a little bit more comfortable about like not that we're questioning your expertise, but like we want to understand what's happening in our bodies. And at the end of the day, if you're watching or listening to this, it is your body. So sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves in the medical system, and it's not always easy. You're not going to get a Dr. Ben out there who's going to be like, "Yes, I want to be your partner." They're going to they're going to be might be a little bit more cold and to the point and direct, and they don't want to be questioned. But I'm going to encourage you, if you're watching this, to be able to ask the questions and advocate for yourself. But you want to advocate for yourself from a place of knowledge. And even if you're not a child, I mean, I've read books to my son and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this. And so I'm always learning, even though I'm considered an adult. I think it's a good thing to do. Like, I don't have kids. You know what? I have a grandson I'm going to see today. So I may purchase that book. So maybe that's something that they can teach him and start reading him at bedtime stories. And, the best bedtime stories are not just the fairy tales, but the ones that not only entertain, but can teach you as well. So I think this is a great resource, not just for kids, but for adults as well, because then the kid is often going to look to the parent to
Mm.
say, like, what's happening? And as the parent, we have to be able to come down at the level of their intellect at the moment of their age and be able to explain things with a vocabulary that they understand. And sometimes we can't find the words, but Dr. Ben's book was perfect way for you to be able to explain it in an entertaining way. And what I really appreciate about even just that one piece of Appy is his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Appy's character is that you kind of explain not just the function of it, but a procedure that that particular organ might have to go through. And so I'm curious, does it do that for like the blood test? Like if you have to get a blood, take blood, does your book talk about that at all?
Yeah, so I have blood cells in there. So I have the white blood cells we call little red. We have the white blood cells we call the leuks because they're called leukocytes. And then we have platelets we call plates. And so we talk about how surgeons interact with those. We check the platelets before surgery to make sure that your blood can clot appropriately because during surgery we cause bleeding just naturally. We team up with the leukocytes, because they help tell us if there's an infection or if you're getting better or worse. We check them in the blood as well. And then we team up with the red blood cells, the little reds, to make sure that you have enough blood to bring the oxygen that you need to heal after surgery. I think surgery is actually a great way to get kids interested in medicine and in their body because kids love trucks and they love Legos and they love building things. They love putting things together. And surgery is all about fixing, removing, replacing parts of the body that are broken or don't work or infected, and to make them better. And so I think it's an easier concept for kids to grasp, especially general surgery, these different organs and how they work together and where we put them and how we take them out or replace them. Whereas other parts of medicine are a bit more nebulous. Blood tests, chemical messengers, all this pathways, that can be how medications work is a much more difficult to comprehend. But surgery, I think, is a great place to get kids started because it's just these pieces. It's like a puzzle, right? You're putting these pieces together, or you're taking them away, and we're all sort of set up in the same way. And it really, I think, it gives kids a great baseline to start learning about their body and about medicine.
Yeah. What you were saying reminded me of that game Operation.
Yeah,
Did you ever play that game as a child?
we had Operation when I was a kid.
Yeah. Was that your inspiration to be a surgeon?
God, no, it was not my inspiration to be a surgeon.
What inspired you to go into general surgery?
Well, so I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up going to college at Johns Hopkins. I had been watching a ton of 24. I don't know if you remember that show with Kiefer Sutherland at the time as Jack Bauer. And I was like, I'm going to be I'm going to be a secret agent. And so I went to college majoring in political science. And I thought, oh, yeah, I took a year of Arabic. And after that first year of college, I was miserable. I hated all the classes and I was so bored. And I was like, what am I doing? And I had really liked psychology in high school. And so I switched my major to psychology and thought this has to be better. And so I loved psychology. But Johns Hopkins is a bit of a factory for pre-med students. And so I had a bunch of friends that were interested in medicine. And so I started talking to them and I started doing some research down at the hospital. And my cousin at the time was a neurosurgeon, just finishing his residency. And I was having lunch with him. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I like computers, but I like psychology, but I haven't found anything that's terribly fulfilling. And he was like, well, if you want to work in a place where everyone works together as a team to achieve a common goal, you should really think about going into medicine. And so I said, that sounds great. And so I applied to med school and got in and kept going from there.
That is so cool. And I think it's so perfect because it parallels with the body. It's like, if you want to work with a team that all works together for the same goal, AKA to keep you alive,
Absolutely.
it's the same thing. So it's like you're in the team, working on the team in the
Yes. And I tried to emphasize that in the book. All these parts are different parts, but they're not. They're all together, right? The diaphragm helps the lungs. The heart pumps the blood through the lungs. The lungs oxygenate the blood that the heart pumps out to the rest of the body. The blood brings the nutrients from the small intestine. The colon absorbs the water. The small intestine absorbs the nutrients. All these things don't work in isolation. And so you have to think of it like that.
Yeah. I could picture sequels or an animated cartoon of different things that your body goes through, and all the characters of your body are like, I got clean up on IL kidney, or like all the white blood cells, or I don't know. Maybe it's just me imagining what else could come from this one book. And I just feel like there is so much more. And that's how education happens, right? You're teaching through storytelling. And I think that's a really good point to make too, and a distinction that you're not just teaching the thing, it's through storytelling. And even as a speaker myself, Les Brown, who I studied under, he said, never tell a story without a point and never make a point without a story. Stories ground knowledge.
Great.
Right? And so this is what your book does, is it creates stories around knowledge that could be, for lack of a better word, dry and very sterile and clinical. And you've brought them to life. And I think that's really beautiful. And I think there's an endless number of possibilities that could be created from this. And so maybe this is where your psychology is coming into play.
Yes, thanks. Yeah. I've started on a second book. I agree with you. Like, I think there's a lot of directions you can take this in. And so I really want to create a series called the Junior Surgeons Club on Call, where it's a bunch of kids and they're surgeons and they're going in, because some of the feedback I've gotten from my friends is like, this is awesome. And now I want to know like what it is to take out an appendix. Like, how does that look? And so, I wrote a book about the appendix just because that's a very common thing that I'm working on now, where it takes you through what happens from the surgeon's perspective when somebody comes to the hospital as a patient and they have appendicitis. What are the tests that they go through? And so you get the surgeon's perspective and the kid's perspective, and I try to make it fun and interesting, and we'll see if people like it.
Yeah, I can see all the organs inside the body waving goodbye to the appendix as it's being cooked.
That's a great idea.
It's nice knowing you. So gosh, this is so very cool to help promote your book and encourage everybody who's listening or watching this. Kids or not kids, I think this book is fabulous in order for you to start learning about your body, getting informed yourself. The reality of it is, if we have the privilege of getting older and living in this human experience, our bodies are going to break down in some way, or it's going to need a little help from the good doctors here. So it's good for us to inform ourselves and be educated so that we can come into a conversation with our doctors empowered. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So Dr. Ben, on the Small Victories podcast, I like to end with this question. And the question is, what are we helping you celebrate today? What victory are we helping celebrate?
I think you're helping me celebrate that my kids don't cry when I have to go into work anymore. They get excited and they're happy that I'm making someone feel better, and I teach them about it the next day.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Yes, yes. Thank you. We are definitely helping celebrate that your kids are becoming not just informed, but also compassionate here.
Exactly.
Okay,
Well
good.
said.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Red, for this. To the listener or to you who's watching this, as we reflect on this conversation, I hope you remember that fear often grows in the absence of understanding, but curiosity creates space for courage. Whether you're a parent helping a child navigate the unknown, someone facing your own medical journey, or simply wanting to better understand the incredible body you've been given, knowledge is empowering. And when we choose curiosity over fear, we begin to move through life with greater confidence, peace, and trust. Dr. Ben reminded us today that medicine is not just about procedures and diagnoses, it's about people. It's about compassion, education, communication, and helping others feel less alone in moments that can feel overwhelming. And that is what living victoriously is all about. It's not the absence of fear, it's having the courage to lean in, learn, ask questions, and move forward anyway. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Small Victories Podcast. And until we meet again, be blessed.
Angel of light, come into me. Show me what I need to see.